Firewalk Studios can't redo Concord if Sony shuts them down, which they did. DFC Intelligence predicts the gaming industry will have a solid comeback when we get new hardware in 2025. ConcernedApe finally beat his own game. Rockstar veterans have splintered off and created their own game studio to make a hyper-realistic Cthulian horror game with blackjack and Twizzlers. SAG-AFTRA is making a deal with the machines. And will the last segment of this episode be a trick? Or will it be a treat?
Hi, I'm Nick.
Hi, I'm Josh, and remember, drugs are too expensive to waste on your kids.
And I'm Andy. This is Video Game Tango. Happy Halloween, everybody!
Hello.
Like zoinks! It's Halloween, dude.
It's Halloween,
We thought we'd do a little fun stuff and dress up for Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a gremlin. We've got a skeleton.
Bones.
And then we've got a Cartman. I decided I was going to become a VTuber.
Yes, for your audio listeners, Andy has rigged up a VTuber of Cartman playing South Park.
It's pretty great. It is pretty great, I will admit.
Yeah, it's from the Make Love Not Warcraft episode. The moment before he does the mom bathroom skit. Yeah.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and probably get some news going. It's going to be a super light episode, guys. Like not a whole lot.
Pre-holiday season.
Yeah, we're in a bit of a slump as far as gaming and gaming related news goes. So yeah, basically we have a couple little anecdotes that we're working with here. We really did kind of want to have like a Halloween thing for the stream, and we put some effort into costumes and stuff. So we definitely wanted to make sure we had a show for you today. Make sure you hang out to the end. We'll be doing a little something special for Halloween. But until then,
Keep a straight face, Josh.
Until then, let's talk about Sony real quick.
Sony
was recently under a little bit of fire for buying out Firewalk Studios, who then in 2003, who later released a little video game called Concord about 2 months ago. Concord is known as one of the biggest failures, if not the biggest failure, to ever hit the gaming scene. Having sold a AAA title, mind you, brought to you by Sony and Firewalk Studios, sold 30,000 copies across both PS5 and PC.
Shouldn't make a grape-themed extraction shooter.
That's probably
it's
true.
Not what the audience wants.
Although there was that game Grape Escape. That is essentially an extraction shooter, if you're familiar with it.
Okay.
Honestly, they should have just called that Albatross with how hard that sunk the ship. That's rough.
Don't rub it in any harder. So yeah, a little over a year ago, they bought it, Firewalk Studios, and became the main publisher for them. And then, obviously the travesty that is Concord happened. I mean, the game lasted like 2 weeks, like just under 2 weeks before they killed the game's servers. We're all familiar with it. Firewatch, directly from the Firewatch Twitter, it says Firewalk is signing off one last time. Firewalk began with the idea of bringing the joy of multiplayer to a larger audience. Along the way, we assembled an incredible team who were able to navigate growing a new startup into a team during a global pandemic. That's true. I mean, like they did kind of start off like they were founded in 2018,
but then a soulless corporation bought and gutted us, and now here we are, jobless and sad.
Yeah, now they've ended us. Now,
yep.
It's on the tail of making a subpar game at the end of the day. But yeah, anyways, it goes on to say that they prop themselves, and good for them, like making a studio full of game developers in just a couple of years, turning out a game that is like arguably AAA quality. It just didn't come with like the heart and soul of its competitors, really, at the end of the day.
It is almost never the devs' fault.
Yeah, but like how much of that is Sony, like, and the stockholders being like, game, money. Like,
I'm sure that's going to be part of it. Like, at the end of the day, they didn't make a game that was really that like exciting people. If we didn't have arena shooters like Overwatch, maybe it would have done better. But to make essentially a clone with a couple more mechanics to it.
Yeah, no, I get it. It kind of missed the mark with Overwatch 2 having already come out.
Yeah.
So no, I definitely get it. The timing was a little rough. So
I mean, it's not even just timing. It's just like Overwatch feels like it has heart and soul, even though it's like one of the most soulless games of all time.
Yeah,
made by one of the most soulless companies of all time. And yeah, now you're right. Yeah. That's true. It had soul to begin with.
It did.
But to come out with something that doesn't feel like there was a lot of passion put into it. I don't know. It was uninspiring and unexceptional at the end of the day. So of course we wish all these devs good luck in their next endeavors. Hopefully they'll be able to find jobs. It's really hard right now for these guys to find jobs at the moment because everybody's cutting staff. But we do wish you, of course, all the best of luck. On the heels of closing Firewalk Studios, Sony also shut down Neon Koi, who they acquired in 2022. It is just one of the they're mostly known for making mobile games, and at the end of the day, it's just another one of those it was a cash grab purchase from the get. So wanting to get more into the mobile category, kind of is what it is. But unfortunately, it does mean more people and another company that was kind of started during COVID getting shut down in kind of the same way, man.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of what my first little bit here is talking about. So DFC Intelligence. Now that sounds like a scary proto-military agency, but it's actually a medium scary information gathering and projection agency. And now they have been monitoring and projecting the growth of the video game industry since 1995. So nearly 30 years experience, and since 1995 they have tracked a nearly 20-fold increase in profit of video games. Now this year, in the year of our Lord 2024, the video game industry is worth roughly 70 to the PC and console game software market over this year is $72 billion. Over the next 4 years, it's projected to grow to $83 billion.
$83,000 million.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear on that number.
$83 billion by 2028. So right now, in 2024, we are seeing one of the worst years for the video game industry, but from a side of jobs being lost, from studios being bought up and going under, and quite frankly, a little bit of there's been some good games this year. Don't get me wrong. There's some great games, but an overall, I guess a lack of, I feel, just money grubbing, right? We're not getting those epic masterpieces. I didn't feel any masterpieces, right? Last year, great year for games. This year, medium. But this year was one of the first years that hardware outsold software in the PC market. So and the console market, right, including consoles, PCs, or actually, excuse me, that was 2023. That was one of the first years that outsold software. Now, this year, both software and hardware sales have been in a downturn, and we can see that with games like Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws performing terribly. Right, there's a lot of games that were projected to be big games that did not have the selling points, did not have the money afterwards. But DFC Intelligence is reporting reporting that there's going to be a huge upturn in the market over the next 4 years in game developments. Game development companies in the industry as a whole. So hopefully what this means is that this free fall of developer jobs, of independent studios and all that is hopefully this is the last year that we see that. So at least it does look like there is some positive growth stats coming up here. So that is good news. I mean, it's definitely steady growth over the next 4 years in the PC and console hardware revenues, because we have Nintendo Switch 2 coming out and the PS5 Pro coming out. So there's going to be a huge upturn in hardware sales. That's going to be that affects the industry like across the industry. Deal. So it's a good upturn. So hopefully we'll see a stop in this loss of jobs, and the video game market won't just come crashing down.
I'm all for the ending of losing jobs and downsizing and but what has me kind of scared about this downturn in the market, I mean, especially because honestly, this market is not immune to economic downturn, right? And what kind of scares me about it is I feel like these developers aren't going to quite learn the lessons that I think are visible in this economic downturn. Is that I think it's make giant, large scale epics, that are like grandiose and huge in scale. Just don't maybe commit all of your development time to that if you're one of these major studios. Like, new IP is important. So is innovation in the space. When, like, it's really hard to justify spending $70, which is the new price for AAA titles. It's really hard to justify spending $70 on a game that you essentially already have, or that you have essentially already played.
Yeah, agreed.
And when the world is full of plenty and there's enough money to go around, and we're all a little bit more prosperous and things are just generally more affordable, it's a lot easier to justify big purchases. I mean, at the end of the day, we're at $70 for most of these titles. It's a little bit easier to justify once or twice a month spending that money on these games. But when the cost of everything goes up and games are not a necessity, it becomes harder to justify for a lot of the audience of these games to make those purchases, or at least less willy-nilly, right? You're a little bit less willing to take some risks on titles, right? But you're also a little bit less willing to buy the next Assassin's Creed, right? Because I just played a new Assassin's Creed 6 months ago, and I just got that experience. Not only that, but for the last 15 years, we've been getting that experience almost yearly, right? So there's a couple things to consider. Is like, there's some severe burnout on some titles. Of course, something like Black Ops 6 kind of goes against that rule a little bit. But there's these longtime franchises. They're coming out at a cadence that's just kind of ridiculous, right? To have these titles come out year after year, it's simply a money grab, and that's really all it is. And I hope if anything, these companies are willing to look at this as kind of a lesson in, like, let's scale back a little bit. Let's make games faster and cheaper. Not by reducing staffing, not by reducing labor force, but by actually like setting our goals just a little bit lower. Let's bring down the scale of these games and get a more regular cadence, and let's experiment, right? Because I think that would be a healthy thing to do in an industry that is just plagued by sequelitis,
So a cursory Google search tells me that Sony made $6.3 billion in 2023, which is coming out of COVID, right? So that's $6,300 million. So when something like Concord happens, 6 years of development time, make it through COVID, finally release their game, $200 million just for the purchase of the studio, probably plus another 100 or 200 million for all the stuff you have to pay for to make a game. Game comes out, flops, they kill it in 3 weeks, and then close down the studio a few months later. We hear $200 million, the game flops, it shuts down, it blows our minds, right? $200 million is
compared to $6
barely
billion,
1% of 1 year's profit of Sony's money.
Yeah.
So when we talk at them from our standpoint of like, here's these things you could do to make more money or make better games, even if they were listening, we are in such a different ballpark. They're like, we're trying to get you to make games people enjoy. They don't do that.
Yeah.
Sony and Ubisoft and Activision and Microsoft, they're not in this for making entertaining experiences or profound experiences. The individual devs, sure, the artists, the writers, all that.
Yeah.
But the companies make thousands of millions of dollars a year. Like at the end of the day, like I feel like we keep talking about, and it's not a bad thing, but we're just talking about symptoms of a cancer that is AAA gaming, right? It is not going to change unless there's a huge cultural shift in the opinion on video games. Because for every one of you, me, and you, there's 1,000 people out there that just buy the new game that comes out and they play it and they're like, oh, that sucked, and then whatever. And then they buy the next one, They outnumber us tens of thousands to one.
No, yeah, for sure. Definitely. I mean,
so it's all good and well. I'm not trying to like shit on anybody's parade, but I don't think we should expect anything from AAA companies going forward until their business model fails, which it probably won't. Right?
No, yeah, what you're saying is 100. I think 100% right. Like we share opinions there.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about this in hopes. You know, at the end of the day, they're being monetarily rewarded for the things that people are complaining the most about.
If they were our only option, I'd be right there with you. But the fact that there's an entire quantitative market of AA and single A and indie games, like I know that a lot of people are only aware of AAA games, but it's just pointless to keep trying to play these games when it's just like trying to buy a fish that was in the barrel that got shot. You know? It's like, go down to the creek, get your homegrown fish.
I just don't, for me, it's so hard for me to kind of grok, and it's monetary incentive. I get that, but it's so hard for me to grok like, okay, well, why don't we, instead of buying this new studio for what they say is going to be a AAA game, like, I don't understand why they don't have development teams that are willing to get into the indie market. Like, because
microtransactions make hundreds of thousands of times as much money.
Yeah. No.
Why would you?
At the end of the day,
it's just
again,
the money
you're right.
people behind these games are just in it for profit, because first they did the music industry and then they did movies and now they're into games, right?
Yeah. This is what happens when
circle back to that DFC report. One thing I don't really, it's again speculation, don't think it's taken into account is actually the strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike that's going on in the video, like, which nobody seems to, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but I wonder how much of that report was collated before that strike happened, because right now we're not seeing any effects of that really because of how long these games take to make, right? But after next year, we will see the effects of this strike. Like, it's going to start happening, and the longer it goes on, the longer it takes things to get back going again. So that's also another thing with that upturn that they're anticipating. If this strike takes a year to get resolved, there is not going to be a $13 billion uptake, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just a thing I
think trying to predict this market is going to work great for stuff like mobile games and live service games where they have a tried and true proven method of making a shit ton of money. But that's only going to last as long as the zeitgeist, the public populace is okay with that every happening. Single game trying to vie for your wallet and your time, as opposed to being a fun experience, right? Eventually, we will raise a generation of gamers that is so burnt out on games
that bubble pops.
That the bubble pops. Like, yeah, you know, if it's almost a bad thing that stuff like Fortnite exists, because although it's a solid game, it creates this evergreen space where it raises generations of children through it that become okay with that concept, which is, I think, elongating the time we're going to be seeing live service games become the norm. Eventually, I think there's just going to be kind of a schism. Like, we think of AAA games now being separate from indie games, but they're still very much meshed together. But 10, 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be a sharp divide between the games the quote-unquote normies play, right, the non-gamers, and then what remains of the ever-burgeoning indie scene, where it's like people are never going to stop making games. It's a form of media, right? People aren't going to stop writing books or
it's
making
a form
music.
of expression.
Yeah.
It's more than a form. It's a form of expression, art.
Yeah. If I'm going to predict anything over the next 4 years, is we just see a bigger and bigger gulf between the small-scale games and the big ones. Is the big ones just make more and more money and just keep chasing each other's tails and every little trend. You know, the Battle Pass was one thing, and then the daily login. We're going to see another thing in the next year or two that like every game's going to copy. And
Wall running.
My hope is that the indie scene makes a return. Like, dude, one of the best things, and this is from Microsoft, one of the best things that I think ever happened to gaming was the Xbox Live Arcade. The barrier to entry to, like, you could get the
I remember it much.
That was on the original Xbox, right?
No, that was on the Xbox 360.
Okay.
When they were like, we're gonna make this huge push for live and for ease of access for small like developers, small teams to make games. And that's where we got things like Geometry Wars, right? Geometry Wars was kind of like the beginning of that cycle, but you could get Xbox dev kits for cheap or sometimes free. They had ways that you could get like a license to use Xbox dev kits. So you could make Xbox 360 games, and it was huge. Like the marketplace for that was massive. They made a killing, and I think they took their like 30%, and then the developers got 70% on the end of it. And it was like Xbox Live Arcade was so in your face for the beginning of like the real like.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, I mean it was huge. Like the Geometry Wars was the first game I got on Xbox 360. Literally downloaded it before we installed Halo, when Halo 3 came out. And yeah, man, it was just, it's really what I'm getting at right now is I'm just frustrated, to be honest, like with the whole scene. It's like I would love to see a resurgence of indie games into the mainstream. Like these big companies have such a fucking hold on the mass population's attention because they've perfected like eating people's time. You know, Fortnite is a great example. I just looked up when Fortnite released, and it was in September of 2017. There are kids that started playing that when they were 7, and they're in their teens now, or kids that started when they were, you know, like 11 or 12, which is a more appropriate age, but that are getting to the point where like they're starting to get jobs and they're starting to have some kind of buying power, and they're jumping into being able to make their own purchasing decisions for video games, and they're locked into this mindset of like every game that I buy needs to eat all of my time for the next 6 months, right? That stuff, it bothers me so much, man.
I mean, if you had to use an analogy, it's like if someone, they watch Marvel, they watch Transformers, they watch James Bond, and every summer blockbuster that has a commercial on their favorite TV channel, and you're trying to get them to watch Sundance Festival films. Like, it's not a direct equivalent, but it's the closest one that's easy to come by. And we're never going to ever see indie games like have large scale popularity as long as people can make money on games. Because you make money on games, there's going to be, we live under capitalism, right? The biggest companies are going to take the largest share. So I think like really the best we can do is just keep highlighting indie games. have our listeners hear reviews of people who have decent opinions on games talk about, hey, here's a great game that'll, you'll enjoy for 10 hours or 100 or 1,000. And it's almost always under $20. And it's supporting directly a developer or a company with no publisher overhead or very little, and if we want to get people into indie games and like get away from this mess that is AAA shit, we just need to focus on them. Because like, what else can we do?
Yeah, no. I mean, as far as what we're able to contribute to the game space, yeah. No, yeah, 100%. You're right. I mean, at the end of the day, like me personally, let's see. In the last few years, as far as non-indie games are concerned, I think I've bought like 5 or 6. Now, to be fair, I don't buy a lot of games. Like, my time is so limited, I don't even play a lot of games. And I definitely have favorites that are easy to just jump in and play for a little bit. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know why I'm so frustrated by this, but I really am, like to the point where it's like kind of messing with my train of thought.
It just sucks to see money people take over your thing that you've loved your whole life,
Yeah,
At the end of the day, like this last 6 months to a year, I haven't had a lot of money, but when I do, like I'm buying indie games, and I also play a lot of free ones. And it's rare that a week goes by that I don't play at least 2 or 3 new games, even if those are like single dev mobile games I found on a Reddit. It's like, hey guys, this is my first game. I really like this other game. I'm trying to make a game like it. I play new games as often as I can just to get a full breadth of experience. Just like a movie buff would watch every movie they can, whether it's good or bad. I just love the experience of games. It does end up making me into a fucking jaded old coot, and I complain a lot about games, but that's one opinion. So. I mean,
there's a lot to complain even about the indie space, right? Like there's a lot of bandwagoning that happens. Like you see Vampire Survivors comes out and suddenly everything is Vampire Survivors.
Created a new genre. Well,
right.
Revived a new genre. Yeah.
It's hard to fault anybody because like they jumped into Vampire Survivors. They loved it, right? And they're like, but I think there are some things that I could do better. And then they shoot their shot, right? Yeah. It's really hard to blame anybody. It's not like it is in the AAA gaming space where it's like, oh, X company is making shitloads of money on this type of genre. Let's go ahead and make our own. With blackjack and hookers, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I don't know, man. I guess right now I'm just kind of jaded on games. Not any games in particular. Just gaming in general. It just, I guess I'm in. You guys ever have that gaming rut? The gaming funk where it's just like, oh yeah, definitely. Nothing sounds fun. I'm kind of in that right now. So, huh?
Daily, I'm broke.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyways, enough ranting from me. Are you all done with that DFC report there? Okay, cool. Well, I want to move on to we have a couple little fun anecdotal ones. So I've got the creator of Stardew Valley, ConcernedApe, just finally 100%ed his game.
Darts.
Yeah, dude. Congratulations, ConcernedApe, for finishing your own game. No, I think it's funny because like I've actually been playing Stardew Valley a little bit lately. It's a game that I just like to load up every now and then and get some progress on my old farm. Like I've got a farm that I've probably got like just itself, probably like a couple 100 hours in. I just like the game is already over for what it's worth. It's like my farm has been judged, whatever. But it's some like
my farm has been judged.
My farm has been judged. But yeah, so I jumped into some Stardew Valley, and so ConcernedApe in Stardew Valley programmed a couple other mini games inside of the game. There's Journey of the Prairie King, and then he's got, which is a twin stick shooter. Basically, you've got like 4 little areas that bad dudes come from. You start in the middle, and you just have to twin stick shoot till the end. There's waves that come out of them, and like every now and then you have like a super wave. Anyways, the game was so difficult for him that he's been trying to get the achievement for that since since he put the game out in like pre 1.0. So that's
congratulations.
Fun. Yeah, congratulations to ConcernedApe for finishing your own game.
Has anyone else gotten it?
Game. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
right.
people.
Yes.
Oh.
Now, please finish Haunted Chocolatier if you don't mind. That would be fantastic. We'd all love that. And then a little bit of quick news. If you're a fan of the Rockstar guys, there is a
Rockstar?
new. I mean, Rockstar, yes, but the Rockstar guys in particular. Some of the old team from Rockstar have come, created their own game studio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, industry veterans that worked at Rockstar, and they're like longtime vets that have moved on to do their own thing, which I'm glad is kind of in vogue right now. Like a lot of these small game studios that are popping up from these like kind of industry giants and going, fully independent. I think that's kind of an awesome trend that we're seeing in the space.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. The developers are Vert Paint Studios, and they just announced with just a little. I mean, the trailer is just a teaser, and it's like the smallest tease of all teases that I've ever seen from any video game ever. But it's
old H.P. Lovecraft quote.
But it's a horror game, and it is supposed to be like a Lovecraftian style horror game. A couple of the main things they talk about is like they plan on making this as photorealistic as possible, which I think there are a lot of good horror games that kind of do that already. But I'd be interested to see what the guys from Rockstar like. The horror game space. There are industry giants that get into it occasionally, but not like not the big names. Ubisoft really doesn't. You get some stuff like Outlast, that comes from like a medium-sized company. But for the most part, it is like indie creators that are creating horror games. To see like Rockstar developers get in and do their take on horror, I'm kind of looking forward to. It's interesting, and it's Halloween.
So whatever you do,
So
don't
talking
get
about a spooky
bought
game.
by EA, become Respawn.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Josh, you have some follow-up for us, don't you?
I do. So I kind of, in the last story, mentioned about the SAG-AFTRA strike. Well, there is a weird agreement being made with SAG-AFTRA, and hold on to your butts, an AI powered voice company. So now right away you're like, wait, isn't that the whole thing that they're trying to avoid like having? So this company, right off the bat, was co-founded by a voice actor, Sissy Jones, and voice director Julian Kwasniewski. I'm gonna.
Good attempt.
Yep, that's it. I feel like that's the best it's going to get. Now, the company purports to be the only premium voice service created by actors and empowered by AI. So now Jones claims that actors working with Ethovox, probably ethic.
A little bit on the nose, but yes.
Ethovox, right? Have complete control over how their digital replicas are deployed and emphasize that anybody working with the company will be properly compensated. Now, we know this is true because SAG-AFTRA says, hey, you're following all the guidelines we as actors have set forward. Kudos. We can work with you. You can make video games with people using SAG-AFTRA actors. So that is really cool because they're AI. Sometimes there is a thing that like the combustion engine or switching from coal to gasoline, right? Like there are some things that cannot be stopped. The invention future demands.
The ball is rolling.
The ball is
up a
rolling
hill.
and it is happening. And honestly, it feels like AI powered things is from everything from digital assets to voice, it's going to happen. It is happening. So to see a company saying, okay, we can work with these guidelines, we can work with these rules and still progress. Because ultimately, that's the middle ground we have to find, right? And so it's kind of exciting to see a company doing that. And since they're the only one doing it right now, they have a significant advantage. So hopefully it's successful and it works.
Yeah. I mean, good luck being a company that does AI ethically and equitably and paying people what they deserve for your AI work, you are 1 in a million. Literally.
Yeah, right.
Literally. So fingers crossed that works for everyone involved.
Yeah, at this point, like AI is going to be integrated in everything that AI can be integrated in. Like we know that's happening. There's AI being used at the fucking speaker at Taco Bell.
It's the new Bluetooth. Remember when they put Bluetooth and everything? It's the new Bluetooth.
I hate that they call it AI.
Yeah, it's completely inaccurate, and but it does create buzz for people that don't quite know what it means.
Now we got to come up with a new phrase for actual AI. Call it like real smarts.
Dude, I'm into real smarts. Yeah. Well, hey guys, I said make sure you stick around until the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
We are going to be doing a Halloween candy tier list. Why don't you go ahead and get us started, Josh?
Well, now I know what the best candy is. I'm going to tell you right now that it's...
See, he can't even say it. We're not even cutting off here. He's going to be like,
dick.
Reese's.
Of course it's Reese's.
Of course it's Reese's.
Everybody says Reese's.
Well, there's so many fucking options for Reese's. You can have pieces, outrageous.
Do you like entire chocolate?
You can have big
Maybe I want
cup.
some Smarties.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know?
I do want some I always want some Smarties, but at the end of the day, it's candy corn.